level as compared to early after depolarizations. So this is an example or a schematic representation of the early after depolarization, where it is usually due to the increase in the duration of the QT interval and increase in the duration of the action potential. So whenever there is a QT interval prolongation and there is an arrhythmia, it is most likely due to the early after depolarization type of arrhythmia. And
Yes.
delayed after depolarization usually happens in the phase 4 as shown in this figure.
నాన్నే వెళ్ళు స్నానానికి వెళ్ళు వెళ్ళు.
Coming to the examples of the early depolarization, early after depolarization, it is usually seen in low potassium levels or condition where there is bradycardia. For example, bradycardia dependent arrhythmia is most likely due to early after depolarization, or it can be due to drug toxicity such as quinidine. Whereas delayed after depolarization is more likely to happen when there is a premature beat or increased level of serum calcium level or increase in adrenal levels. It may be due to the inotropes that we are giving or increased sympathetic activity or catecholaminergic mediated ventricular tachycardia may be examples of delayed after depolarization, or it could be due to digoxin toxicity. Triggered activity again can be treated by a correction of the trigger, such as a low potassium or stopping the arrhythmogenic drugs or avoiding bradycardia, for example, in early after depolarization, or it may be avoiding the tachycardia or treating the tachycardia, such as stopping the inotropes in case of delayed after depolarizations. This is an example of early after depolarization with the QT prolongation. The commonest example is the torsades, where there is a twisting of points. And you can see the patient is having ventricular flutter with the twisting of points. Classical example for early after depolarization. So delayed after depolarization, some of the conditions I have already told, such as the digoxin toxicity, and the main mechanism is during the phase 4. Also, you should remember that automaticity also is a condition which happens during the phase 4. So, and delayed after depolarization is also a condition which happens during phase 4. And in phase 4, there is examples include digoxin toxicity, catecholamine induced VT. Other examples include ischemia induced VT, or a prolongation of the action potential caused by class 1A drugs, and RVOT-VTs are important examples. This is the example of catecholamine mediated ventricular tachycardia. It can happen during the treadmill test also. If the patient is prone for this kind of arrhythmia, you can see a multifocal type of catecholamine mediated ventricular tachycardia happening during the exercise. So arrhythmia that are involving delayed after depolarization, they are characterized by increased calcium overload inside the cell, and they will be aggravated by either tachycardia or by sympathomimetic agents. Coming to the third mechanism, that is the re-entry mechanism. Normally, there is no re-entry mechanism happening in the conduction system, because the entire heart gets activated over rapidly because of the normal conduction pathway, and all the cells undergo depolarization over a period of this more synchronous fashion, and they will become refractory after that, and there is no chance for re-entry mechanism. However, if in certain situations where certain group of fibers are left out and are not activated along with the other fibers, and they become excitable little later on, and instead of the impulse getting died, the impulse gets activated in these isolated fibers, and they in turn create a circus motion. I will come to this with the help of a few diagrams. So normally there is only one pathway, that is the beta pathway, you can say, in the normal mechanism. There is no second pathway. In some patients, you will have two pathways in various areas of the either in the conduction system or outside the conduction system. In such, when two pathways are available, one is the fast conduction pathway, and which has got usually a long refractory time. The second pathway is conducting slowly, but it has got a shorter refractory time. And the conditions which are required for this re-entry arrhythmia to happen. Although the two pathways are there, it is not necessary that arrhythmia does occur, but certain conditions will have to be met for arrhythmia to develop in these patients, because we see many of these patients coming only once in a while. They may have arrhythmia once in a year or once in 2 years also, and only when certain conditions are met, the arrhythmia will happen even in the presence of the dual pathway. So prerequisites for re-entry arrhythmia to occur is that first of all you should have a substrate, that is dual pathways should exist where the property is different. One is a fast pathway, one is a slow pathway. Second is that there should be an anatomical area of a block. For example, in this figure, this central area is considered to be a anatomical area of block, so that the straight conduction is not possible. The circuitous movement of the impulse will have to undergo because of this anatomical block here. So it can be functional block also, and then there should be a unidirectional block. I'll come to this figure here. In the normal pathway, even with the presence of dual pathway, the conduction happens through the normal fast pathway, and there is no arrhythmia because the slow pathway is conducting very slowly, and by the time it reaches here, these fibers here are already depolarized by this fast pathway, so there is no arrhythmia that can happen. This is the normal electrical impulse. Whereas if there is a premature beat that happens immediately after the normal exit of the normal impulse. See, the normal impulse is shown here by the red pathway. It has exited just the first fast pathway, and now there is a refractory period in this area, absolute refractory period. And this premature beat is not able to go into the fast pathway, which is the usual normal phenomenon. So instead of that, it goes through the slow pathway. And now the slow pathway is open, and this slow pathway, when it reaches this particular point, this fast pathway, whatever signal has long gone. So now the slow pathway is able to conduct distally also. At the same time, it can conduct retrogradely also, because the previous impulse has already exited, and the fibers are in the relative refractory period, and it comes back through this retrogradely through this fast pathway channel, and it will complete this circle, and again it will go through this same phenomenon, creating a re-entry type of phenomenon and a tachycardia. So this is the method how a tachycardia will be created. So it requires a substrate. At the same time, it requires an extra systole or an extra impulse to come immediately after the normal impulse, and it should go into this circuitous pathway through the second pathway, that is the slow pathway. So this is the common example, that is the AV nodal tachycardia, where there is a micro re-entry phenomenon happening within the AV node, whereas you have a bundle of Kent or the where there is a extra pathway available. And here two types of conduction can occur: the antigrade conduction through the normal pathway and retrograde conduction through this abnormal bundle of Kent can happen, and which will give rise to a narrow QRS type of tachycardia or orthodromic type of tachycardia through the AV bypass tract. Whereas if there is a reciprocal conduction through this fast pathway, I mean through the bundle of Kent, for example, it can result in a wide QRS type of tachycardia, and retrograde can occur through the AV nodal tract, in which case this type of tachycardia will have wide QRS. So during electrophysiological studies, re-entry tachycardia you can recognize because it has the following properties. It is definitely, you can induce a arrhythmia if there is a re-entry type of arrhythmia by programmed electrical stimulation, whereas in automaticity you will not be able to induce a arrhythmia. They have an abrupt onset and also the offset. Sudden onset and sudden offset is a characteristic feature as compared to automatic arrhythmia. We have got a slow onset and slow offset. And during tachycardias, the RR interval is very much regular, and they can be reset and entrained by pacing. What do you mean by resetting and entrainment? I'll come across. What happens in entrainment is that you give a artificial continuous pacing at a higher rate as compared to the tachycardia rate by using a temporary pacing. Then through the excitable gap, the pacemaker is able to enter this particular re-entry circuit, what is happening, and it will be able to create a higher tachycardia. This is called as entrainment, and now the heart rate will be that of that what is set by the pacemaker. So if you set the pacemaker at a higher rate of the, let us say 200 and 220, slowly it will enter into this circuit of re-entry, and slowly the heart rate, instead of being going at 150, which was the original, now it becomes 200, that is equal to that of the pacemaker rate. That is called as entrainment. And the re-entry can happen either at the micro level, which is called as very small circuit, micro re-entry, or at the very macro level, where the circuit length is very large. And what is this excitable gap is that a gap is always required for the entry of the extrasystole into the re-entry circuit. Otherwise, there is no chance of a re-entry tachycardia. Excitable gap is required, and this excitable gap is in the form of an excitable myocardium, which is available for the circuit to be completed for re-entry to occur. So that means one area should be having a delayed excitability. So only then you will have a re-entry phenomenon, as I have explained. So examples of re-entry type of rhythms include AVNRT or AVRT, which can be orthodromic or antidromic, atrial flutters, atrial fibrillations, or some types of ventricular tachycardias belong to re-entry rhythms. In this, further dividing them into anatomical type or the functional type. In anatomic re-entry, you have WPW type of re-entry, where there is an anatomical substrate available for re-entry. In AV nodal tachycardia, re-entry tachycardia, there is an anatomical anatomy available. Some of the atrial flutters, some of the ventricular tachycardias, where there may be a fibrous tissue around which anatomical re-entry happens, or ventricular fibrillation sometimes. Functional re-entry means there is no particular anatomical area around which a re-entry is occurring. Only thing is that different fibers which are neighboring each other are having a different type of electrophysiological properties. For example, in an infarct border zone, some cells are depolarizing slowly and some are depolarizing little quickly. As a result, there is a difference in the rate of depolarization and repolarization. This can result in re-entry. This is called as functional re-entry. So coming to ventricular tachycardia caused by re-entry, which is a common method of tachycardia. It is one of the commonest methods by which re-entry happens, especially in ischemic heart disease. And the surviving myocardial tissue is separated by connective tissue, resulting in a connective tissue means a scar. So there is a circuitous course of activation is available, and a pathway is created. And even in case of bundle branch re-entry, it can be sustained by a ventricular tachycardia, especially example is dilated cardiomyopathies. So type of re-entry VTs can be a single circle type of re-entry or figure of eight type of re-entry is possible. And after myocardial infarction, what exactly happens is that the surviving epicardial border zones undergo electrical remodeling, and they have reduced conduction velocity and increased anisotropy. So re-entry circuit is possible in them. And during acute infarction or ischemia also, there is some amount of difference, because there is elevation of potassium levels, or there may be reduction in the pH. And as a result of this, a depressed action potential is created in ischemic cells as compared to the neighboring normal cells. And this results in a re-entry phenomenon. In a non-re-entry mechanism also, ventricular tachycardias are possible. For example, patient even without a CAD, in which common examples you can see is in RVOT type of VT, you can have delayed after depolarization type of VTs, or in case of torsades de pons, which is a type of ventricular tachycardia, you have QT prolongation and early after depolarization is the mechanism. So conditions for re-entry that require is that you should have a depressed conduction velocity in some area or abbreviated refractory period. They will promote the development of a re-entry, whereas by prolonging the refractory period of the area or speeding the conduction, you may be able to cancel the re-entry phenomenon. So based upon this, you can treat the re-entry phenomenon. You can use drugs to accelerate the conduction in the particular circuit when it is happening, arrhythmia is happening, or you can use the drug to prolong the recovery time of this circuit, or you can use the overdrive pacing technique, which results in either the entrainment or it results in complete offing of this particular tachycardia, or you can depolarize all the cells by giving a DC shock, or else you can ablate one of the limbs of this re-entry circuits, resulting in a single limb. So this is an example of ECG where re-entry is happening. You can see here one extra stimulus has happened in the form of atrial ectopic here, but it has not produced a arrhythmia because it's in the absolute refractory period. Here it is able to produce a atrial flutter because it is in the relative refractory period it has happened. So this kind of re-entry phenomenon can be identified by using electrophysiological studies, and you may be able to ablate. So coming to these supraventricular tachycardias types, so enhanced automaticity, we have sinus tachycardia or MAT, or also called as multifocal atrial tachycardia or atrial junctional type of rhythm. And in micro re-entry, we have paroxysmal atrial tachycardia or re-entry type of junctional tachycardia, what we have discussed, such as the AVNRT, or macro re-entry type of SVT includes atrial flutter or fibrillations of some types. So what happens with the help of carotid massage, how you can differentiate between some of these types? If you see the sinus massage, carotid massage, if it is due to a automaticity, you can see here there is a slowing of the heart rate with the sinus massage, and you can see the P waves. Even if it was some other type of rhythm, there is slowing when you give either a adenosine or the carotid massage. And again, then there will be the, if it is abnormal automaticity after stopping this massage, again it will have a warm up period and then it will pick up. Whereas if it is due to the atrial flutter, which is a re-entry type of phenomenon, you can see here that after the carotid massage, there is the atrial, you can see that individual atrial P waves are seen here in the form of the flutter waves, and you will be able to identify that it is a atrial flutter that is happening. And a macro re-entry, it is an example of macro re-entry phenomenon. Whereas if it is an AVNRT, there can be a sudden terminate. It's not necessary it will terminate, but if it terminates, it will show that it is a sudden termination, and it identifies that it is a micro re-entry or a type of circuit. Coming to one more example here. Here the example again is that of carotid massage. Here you can see after the carotid massage, there is the slowing of the heart rate. You can see there is individual P waves here. It is an example of a paroxysmal atrial tachycardia with the blocks. Whereas in the second example, you can see the atrial flutter waves here, and you can identify the rhythm properly. And in the third phenomenon, it is abruptly ending after the carotid massage, so it should be a re-entry type of circuit. Coming to the ventricular arrhythmias, which are the types? Enhanced automaticity, common example in ventricular arrhythmia is the accelerated idioventricular rhythm or AIVR. Micro re-entry type of example is ventricular tachycardia. It can happen in ischemia. Macro re-entry, for example, it can happen in ventricular fibrillation flutter or in case of torsades de pons. So what is, we can further identify these types of mechanisms by using premature stimulus or a ectopic beats, or you can give an electrical stimulation to identify this. You can also use it, for example, an extrasystole. If it happens, you can identify if it's due to increased automaticity. It cannot be initiated by any premature beat, neither can a ectopic beat terminate this kind of arrhythmia. But if you see the example of re-entry, it can always be initiated by using an ectopic beat or a premature stimulation, and also it can be terminated with the help of the premature beat or an ectopic beat. Whereas triggered activity can go either way. It can be initiated with a premature beat, but it is not required, and it can be occasionally terminated also, but most of the times not. Here is an example to identify the mechanism. In this, the first ECG example, there is a constant coupling interval between the normal beat and the ectopic beat, wherever it is happening, the ectopic beat is happening. This is an example that constant beat is called as re-entry phenomenon is happening, because there is the constant coupling interval between the normal beat and the ectopic beat. That indicates that re-entry phenomenon is the cause of this ectopic. Here also you can see lot of ectopics here. Here the one ectopic beat to the second ectopic beat interval is constant, but there is no constant coupling interval between the normal QRS and the ectopic beat. So this is an example of the increased automaticity. In automaticity, however, here you can see that it is happened in the absolute refractory period. So the ectopic beat has not generated a QRS complex here, but otherwise the RR interval between the ectopic beats are the same. That is how you can differentiate the automatic type of ectopic beats as compared to the re-entry type of ectopic beat. Coming to the further differences between these types of arrhythmia, automaticity cannot be initiated by the ectopics or electrical stimulation, whereas re-entry can. And termination is also possible in case of re-entry with the ectopic beat or electrical stimulation. There is a warm-up period for automaticity, whereas in case of the triggered activity, the first initiation is short, or re-entry phenomenon, the first ectopic beat which has initiated it is different, and it is longer as compared to that of the subsequent tachycardia. So you can, if you can take the ECG of the beginning, you will be able to differentiate between automaticity and re-entry or triggered activity, because morphology of the first beat is different in case of triggered activity and re-entry, whereas it is the same in case of automaticity. Adenosine also is having a different action. In automaticity, it will transiently slow down the arrhythmia. Then again, you will see the warm-up period and automaticity will regain. Whereas triggered activity can be terminated with adenosine. If it is a re-entry, it will produce either AV block, or if it is an AV NRT arising from the AV node itself, it will terminate. Otherwise, there may not be any response. Catecholamines, on the other hand, in the form of suppose you give isoprenaline, you will see that if it is an automatic tachycardia, the rate will increase. Suppose if it is due to triggered activity, the rate can be increased, especially DAD type of tachycardias, whereas re-entry may either increase or it may decrease. And further, I will not go into the further this one. Only thing is that if you give continuous stimulation by overdrive pacing, it will undergo overdrive suppression in automaticity, whereas it will undergo either a termination or acceleration in triggered activity, whereas it will undergo termination or entrainment in case of re-entry. This is more into EP study rather than a simple cardiological explanation. So coming to the common arrhythmias which have the various mechanisms, sinus tachycardia is automatic type. Inappropriate type of sinus tachycardia is automatic. Sinus node re-entry is obviously a re-entry type. If it is atrial tachycardia, all the three types are possible. Automatic type or the triggered type, for example, digoxin toxicity, or the re-entry type is also possible. In order to differentiate, you will have to do a electrophysiological study, or you can try adenosine or carotid massage to try and differentiate the type of tachycardia, as I have explained. Atrial fibrillation is mostly due to re-entry due to multiple wavelets, or sometimes it can be due to the pulmonary venous potentials due to triggered activity. Atrial flutter is usually re-entry type. SVT caused by AV node re-entry is a re-entry phenomenon, or if it is an AVRT or WPW, it is again re-entry. Accelerated rhythm is automatic type, and VT could be re-entry and most of the times in MI, or it can be catecholamine mediated in automatic type, or in triggered type it can be Torsades de Pons. I will skip these slides due to lack of time. Briefly touching upon antiarrhythmic drugs and how to choose them. The sodium channel blockers obviously will act on the sodium channels, class 1A, 1B, and 1C. And class 2 is the beta blockers, which will act on the phase 4, and such as propranolol, and they will reduce the diastolic depolarization, and they will reduce the arrhythmias. The class 3 is the potassium channel blockers, which will act on the phase 3 of this action potential. And if there is arrhythmia, such as the delayed after depolarization type of arrhythmias, it will be useful. In class 4, we have calcium channel blockers, which are predominantly acting at the level 2, that is the phase 2 of the plateau phase. And if you see the antiarrhythmic, the class 1 antiarrhythmics will produce increase in the effective refractory period and increase in the duration of action potential. That is the mechanism, and they can be increasing the QT prolongation and can produce arrhythmia also. Class 1B will reduce the effective refractory period and the action potential duration, and so they are ideal in case where there is a QT prolongation, or they will not produce at least a QT prolongation and further arrhythmias. Class 1C, you have flecainide, etc., where they do not affect the duration of the effective refractory period, or action potential may be normal or marginally prolonged. In class 2, such as beta blockers, they will predominantly act on the phase 4 and reduce the slope of the phase 4, and also they prolong the repolarization of the AV node, producing the bradycardia or AV nodal block. And class 4 also more or less is calcium channel blockers. They also act more or less in a similar fashion. They will reduce the action potential rise or prolong the repolarization. And in class 3, such as the amiodarone, etc., they increase the duration of the action potential or the effective refractory period, and predominantly by prolonging the repolarization, and thereby the action is produced. So coming to this slide, atrial fibrillation can be a re-entry phenomenon, and control is through the AV nodal blockage. And to convert it into sinus rhythm, you will have to use class 1 or class 3 antiarrhythmic agents. Atrial flutter is also the re-entry phenomenon, and you can use class 1 or class 3 agents. Again, atrial tachycardia due to either automaticity or re-entry, you will be able to use class 1 or class 3 agents. AVNRT, the best method is using AV nodal blockage or ablation, and AVRT, you can try AV nodal blockage, or else ablation can be the best option. The ventricular tachycardias, again class 1 or class 3 agents are the most effective. This is a busy slide. It is available from Braunwald, but basically it is showing which are the agents which can be used depending upon the type of arrhythmia. I will not go into the details of the this one, because it's a chapter on its own, and antiarrhythmic drugs will have to be dealt separately. With this, I conclude, and we can discuss further.
Yeah. I think it's an excellent talk. I think he has given a basic mechanisms how the arrhythmias are caused. And can anybody tell what is the name of this classification of the antiarrhythmic drugs? Some PGs? Hello?
Maybe they are muted, I think.
Can you unmute others? Those who want to ask questions, I think there are two, yeah, somebody has answered. Vaughan Williams classification. Any drugs which are not classified amongst this classification of drugs which you are using? Yeah, good. Any other questions? Evaporatin also, correct? Yeah, good. Dr. Bhatt, regarding parasystolic rhythm and
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Parasystolic rhythm is a type of tachycardia which is a arrhythmia which is firing from an ectopic focus. You can say it is firing from a shell. It is protected itself from other stimulus, or the normal stimulus will not be able to enter this particular area from where the ectopic focus is firing. And because of this phenomenon, you will not be able to easily conquer this type of arrhythmia.
Yeah. And the interectopic intervals are in multiples.
Yes.
In the parasystolic rhythm.
Correct, sir.
Yeah. Some chat box. Yeah.
It is a type of automatic type of rhythm.
Rhythm, yes.
One example I had showed where ectopic beats are frequently occurring. I think
Yes.
it was a slide.
Yeah. I think you showed, yes. And the coupling intervals will vary. It's the interectopic intervals will be in multiples.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
If you want, I will show that somewhere.
Yeah, I think you have shown it. Yes, correct.
One slide was there.
Yeah.
It is an example of parasystole versus.
Correct.
I can't get it.
Any other questions, others? Hello?
There's one in chat box, sir.
Yeah.
What is the difference between MAT and wandering pacemaker?
Yeah. I think Dr. Bhatt.
Wandering pacemaker is the phenomenon is the same. The pacemaker keeps wandering in wandering pacemaker, but the rate is more or less normal. Whereas in case of a MAT, it is produced by the arrhythmic is usually a COPD, and the rate is fast. That is the basic difference. But other than that, there is not much of a difference.
Yes.
This is the one that sir was talking about, parasystole.
Yeah.
The rate between the ectopics are the same, whereas the coupling interval between the normal and the ectopic is different.
It is varying, and interectopic intervals, they will be in multiples.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions from others? And Dr. Ranjan, anything you want to add?
Excellent talk, Dr. Bhatt. You have summarized everything so well. I think for all the postgraduates, this is probably one of the best talks. So whatever question they have in their mind, they can answer. I think you have covered everything very well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other professors want to add any of their comments?
Vamshi wants to tell something.
Ganesh, Sudhakar.
Yeah. Vamshi, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 minute, sir. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yeah. How are you? Yeah.
I'm fine, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, recently one doubt, sir. Recently, I have done one pacemaker, VVIR, sir, Medtronic. I have done it for high-grade AV block, sir. But during the first follow-up, I got tachycardia rhythm, sir. I think it is pacing more.
Okay.
What could all be the possibilities, sir? I have just kept her on beta blocker and cardron, and I have sent her again for next 10 days.
Okay.
What could all be the possibilities, sir? Single chamber pacemaker with a rate of 130.
130.
The first thing is that whether the rate is a natural rate means then it is possible. Is it, or it is an abnormal, I mean pacemaker mediated
Tachycardia.
Tachycardia.
Mm.
I mean, is it a pacing rate of 130 or a normal rate? Because if the person is having a intermittent normal rhythm also, then there can be a heart rate of 130, even if there is a
Complexes
pacemaker.
are wide, broad complexes, sir.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I felt the pacemaker is pacing. It is at a higher rate, or is it sensing? It is a single chamber pacemaker, sir.
Okay.
So what could all be the possibilities? Like there,
If it is a single chamber pacemaker, is it a what do you call? Does it have a sensing in the atria such as a VDD? No, or it is a VVI.
You have
VVI
any
asked, sir.
any strip which you can show? I think that will be given some idea. You
And
have,
yeah, Vamshi, you can also keep a magnet on the pacemaker
yeah.
and then take a ECG. Any sensing will be eliminated. I think the problem is in the rate responsive part of the pacemaker. It's otherwise it should not pace so much, no. And PMT typically occurs in a dual chamber pacemaker. There is a sensing element.
Yes.
I think here you keep a magnet and take one more ECG, and then it should go back to its base rhythm, which could be 85 or 100. And then if it is very difficult, ask them to remove the rate response. Just ask them to keep base pacing.
My suspicion is that a patient's own rhythm is higher and it is getting conducted down, and since it is a rate responsive, the ventricle is firing at 130. So the whether the patient has why the patient has a tachycardia from the atrial level is to be seen. Otherwise, you can block the AV node by giving some beta blockers. That should reduce the rate, I think.
Yes.
I think as
Next time
Dr.
you put
Ranjan
the-
told, yeah, magnet, I think that is the better way to assess it, whether, yeah.
You put
Sir.
that strip, Vamshi, in that MAG group, no? You can put
Definitely,
that
sir.
strip, whatever you have, in the WhatsApp group.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I think all of us can see
Including
Yes.
the response to the magnet.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought to do the programming, sir. I thought of calling the company person, but he was not available.
that.
Medtronic
Okay,
people.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I have kept her on medication and I have sent her home.
Okay.
She was complaining of palpitations, sir. Complaints classically.
Hmm.
I
I think,
felt
as Dr. Bhatt
pacemaker
says,
is
it could
pacing.
be something getting conducted. As Dr. Bhatt says, no, it could be something getting conducted. Could also be very rarely a SVT. You know, atrial component is not like AVNRT doesn't need atria or ventricle. It can keep firing, and in this case, only the ventricle can conduct it. Atria need not conduct.
I think that 130 should
It
not
gets suppressed.
continue, otherwise it will cause tachycardia-induced cardiomyopathy. I think better to control the rate.
Correct.
Sir,
And
I
the
have
funny-
kept her medication. Is it correct, sir? Like Cardron and beta blocker.
Yeah, I think it's right. Yes. But the funny part is 130 is the upper track rate for a pacemaker, no? So why
Yes,
is it 130? It's very
Yes, sir.
specific. So get it analyzed and let us know. It's
Yes,
interesting.
yeah, correct.
Sure. Sir. Thank you, sir.
I think
Any other
Dr.
questions
Bhatt
from the
had covered
postgraduates?
everything. I think
Yeah,
one more
yeah.
thing, I think I'm sure you must have told that automatic arrhythmias actually don't respond to DC cardioversion. You
Yeah.
know, other two do. So anybody who has cardioverted sinus tachycardia will know that it doesn't respond. Yeah.
Yeah, sinus, yeah,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Good point.
The underlying cause has to be
Correct.
eliminated, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good lecture, touching on the basics. Dr. Ranjan, you can conclude.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for such excellent talk. I think both your talks were really nice and really meant for postgraduates, because nowadays we are only having talks about TAVI and all those advanced things. It's very important to have these talks. And honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed each of your slide and learnt a lot. It reminds of our DM days. Thank you, and please keep giving such talks, Dr. Bhatt.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. It was a nice, we learned a lot. Probably the postgraduates definitely will make use of it. So shall we?
Yeah,
conclude?
we'll.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. Next Monday.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.